Hi and welcome to this video. There are probably thousands of books and millions of hours of video on the law of attraction, and most of that will be telling you how if you just focus your thoughts on what you want in life, that somehow the universe will just deliver it into your lap. If you've seen as many people as me who've been practicing the law of attraction who don't seem to have a lot of abundance at the moment, then that would appear that there's something quite wrong with that thought. And I think I know what it is. So this video is about how you need to do something slightly different in order to allow the law of attraction to come into play. I hope you enjoy it, and please leave me some comments at the end if you do. So hi, my name is Pete Gable, and just a quick thing about me. I've spent the last 3 decades working with people, helping, mentoring, counselling them to try and be more successful in many different areas of their life, whether that's in business or in their personal life. That's what's qualified me to make this series of videos, to teach you some of the principles that not only have I used myself personally, but also which I've showed other people. So this particular video is about how to raise your vibrationary field to one of success, because we know that people who are successful at life, whether that's successful in their personal relationships, whether that's in business or even when they're in sport, we know that those people give off a different kind of vibe from people who perhaps who are less successful. And the ones that are struggling, the ones that never get ahead, definitely give off a different kind of vibe. So it's really, really important to understand that if you want something more out of life than you're currently getting, you're going to have to change something. Now, the universe delivers in accordance with your underlying frequency field. What this means is that when we have thoughts in our mind, when we have things that are going through our heads, 2 things are going on in fact. There's first of all what you call your conscious thoughts. This is the stuff where you're actively thinking and consciously thinking, making up thoughts. But the other in the background is of course your unconscious thoughts. But your unconscious thoughts you can't really be aware of. They're happening 24/7 and they're inbuilt into you from a very young age. So these things are going on all of the time. Your conscious thoughts, of course, you can control them, you can redirect them, and you can eliminate them if you want. Your conscious thoughts have no emotions attached to them. They also have no judgments attached to them. I'll be coming back to judgment and emotions in a moment. Now, emotions and judgments come from your unconscious mind. They come from your preconditioning that you received early in your age from your parents, from your teachers, from your religious leaders. Now, those preconditionings are based on your beliefs, your values, and your habits, and your habitual way of thinking. Now, these beliefs, these values, and these habits are your preconditioning, and your preconditioning becomes your normal patterns. Things that you do without really thinking about it, the way you react all the time to situations without really having to think too much. You don't have to think to yourself, oh, this is the way I should react in this situation. Almost all of the time, 95% of the time, our reactions are just happening because they are preconditioned into us from our childhood experiences. Now, whenever you react instinctively, you're always reacting with these unconscious patterns and never with a conscious thought to what's actually happening now. Most of those reactions are coming from events a long time ago, and you've said to yourself at one point or another, this is how I should behave in this set of circumstances. But when you become conscious and when you become self-aware, you start to just look at what's happening right now, and you can make a decision whether or not you act in A situation or B situation. That's called conscious thought. Your unconscious conditioning comes with those emotions. And emotions have a kind of frequency. Your unconscious thoughts are your true thoughts, in fact, your true feelings, your true emotions, and they are your true frequency. Remember, the universe delivers in accordance with your underlying resonant frequency, not your conscious thoughts alone. Now, you can observe your own thoughts, your behaviours and your reactions by going into what we call the observer mode. And this allows you to take control because you've now become conscious or self-aware of what's happening. Now let me just first talk about judgment in a way, because judgment's an interesting thing. We all take part in judging. We judge other people all the time. Sometimes we're conscious that we're judging them, sometimes we're unconsciously judging them. When we criticise people, when we watch someone doing something, we're sitting in a cafe for instance and we see somebody walk by and we say, oh, that person, why are they doing that, or why are they doing that? We're kind of judging and criticising that person. That criticism, that judgment, predisposes that we know better than they do. It places us in a slightly higher, superior position to that person. We know better. And when we do this, what we're doing is we are falsely making ourselves feel better about ourselves, because all judgment and all criticism come from a conditioned response that's built into us because of our low self-esteem. And pretty much everybody has a low self-esteem. It's part of the human condition. And I've worked with tens of thousands of people and I'm yet to find somebody who internally doesn't have some concern about their own self-worth or self-esteem. Now, judgment is an interesting thing, because if other people knew what you were thinking about them, I wonder what they would think of us. Because judgment is actually a negative emotion and it has a low frequency. But let's look at the alternative, because the alternative to judgment is compassion. And if you were to look at the same person from that cafe and see something that you would have normally said, oh, I don't like something about that person, I think they could do better, or maybe they could lose a bit of weight, or maybe they could dress better, or whatever it is that you want to judge about them. A different way is to look at that person as an extension of yourself, as actually the same as you. Because actually we're all doing the same thing. In life, we're all the same. We're all trying to find happiness in our own way, and bizarrely, we're all getting it wrong in our own unique way. See, compassion is a much more positive emotion. It's a positive thought and it has a higher frequency. So going into this kind of observer mode allows you to choose what you're going to think. And as a result, it allows you to choose what you feel. So here's an exercise that you can carry out almost anytime, anywhere, on your own or when you're with others. The next time you notice that you are making a judgment about somebody, step outside of that. Use another part of your mind to observe yourself doing it. See yourself doing it, because you can do that. Your mind is able to watch you doing things. It's called the observer mode. So when you do that and you notice, oh, here I am making a judgment about this person, ask yourself, where does that judgment actually come from? Why am I making that judgment? And do I actually consider myself to be superior to that person? And then what you can do is you can look at that person slightly differently and just remind yourself briefly that they are just like you, making mistakes, doing it wrong, but ultimately trying to get through life and be happy. Every time you practice this stepping outside of yourself into that consciousness mode, that mindful mode, you're actually beginning to recondition your unconscious mind. Because remember, that pattern of judgment is inbuilt into you. You've been doing it a long time. That's what we do. So as you begin to observe what you're doing and change the way that you are thinking about those judgments, your unconscious mind starts to pick that up. And what you're beginning to do is recondition your unconscious mind and begin to change those automated patterns. Practicing compassion is one of the quickest ways to raise your vibrational frequency. Other ways that you can raise your vibrational frequency is by practicing other things. Things like gratitude, things like thankfulness, joy, love, and peace. These are all emotions and thoughts and feelings that have a much higher vibrational frequency than the other ones, the lower ones, which are criticism and hatred and anger, things like that. So here's another exercise that you can do, and this is practicing gratitude. Each mealtime you have, before you eat or before you drink, even if this is on your own, take a minute to just quietly remind yourself of all the things that you have in your life that you have to be grateful for. Whenever you do this, you will raise your own level of vibration frequency. You enter into a state of gratitude. You can also do this as a group if you want. So if you're in a family, if you sit down for a meal, you can also encourage your entire family to join in and sit around the table, maybe even hold hands and just spend 1 minute just reminding yourself quietly, each person on their own, in their mind, reminding themselves what it is that they have to be grateful for in life. Now, Dr. David Hawkins wrote a book called Power and Force. And he identified, as you can see in this chart, a whole range of feelings and thoughts and emotions and where they sit in this particular logarithm of vibration. So you can see things down at the bottom like grief and anger. And then as you move up through the scale to the types of things like happiness and joy, peace, love, these are a different kind of frequency. So this is very important to understand, because love, for instance, is at the highest possible frequency that you can actually practice. I know enlightenment is at the top, but you can't practice enlightenment. It's a state that you become. But love you can practice, and what you should do is not only practicing love on other people, but you should practice loving yourself. You also might notice that on that graph there is a scale on the right hand side which says expansion and contraction. Now, expansion and contraction are a physical manifestation of a higher or lower frequency vibration. So let me just sort of quickly just tell you what that feels like, because you can actually feel this in your body. If you don't notice it now, you can feel it next time you do this. When you're angry, you tend to be in a contracted frame of mind. You tend to close up. You tend to clench up, or your muscles clench up. That's the contraction phase. The complete opposite of that is, of course, maybe when you're standing on a beach, looking out at a sunset into the distance, enjoying the rays of the sun as they drift down at sunset into the sea, and you can almost feel yourself just allowing yourself to open up and expand and draw in that lovely energy. That's the state of expansion. When you're in love with somebody, you're in a state of expansion. So maybe now you can begin to notice the difference, because I've explained to you something which is at the two ends of the extreme, but obviously there are subtleties, but we're always in either a state of contraction or expansion. And the more you begin to notice it, the more you can begin to learn to change it. So, notice when you're in that state. This is your third exercise. Notice when you're in a contraction or an expansion, and when you do that, notice the thoughts and the feelings that have gone alongside that. And if you are contracted, then switch your thinking, switch your feeling into more expansive thoughts and allow yourself to become more expansive. Expand that inner consciousness. Exercise 4 is about manifesting. Now, a lot has been talked about the law of attraction, and for a lot of people it just doesn't work. And the secret for this is really that you can't ask the universe for something when you're in a contracted state. You can only ask the universe for something when you're in a expanded state, when you're feeling good. But here's the thing about it. The universe gets your underlying frequency. And if there's an inconsistency between your underlying frequency and your conscious frequency, it's going to pick up the strongest one. And the strongest one is always your unconscious, because you're doing that 24/7 without even knowing it. So it's one thing to say to the world, I really want a new car, I really want a nice big house, I really want to earn, thousands and thousands of dollars more than I do now. But it's quite another if your underlying thought process is, I actually don't believe this works. Yeah? Disbelief is a negative frame of mind and comes with a lower frequency. So if you don't really believe it, you won't be able to talk yourself into it that way. So this is one of the keys, is to realise that your underlying frequency is really one of the most important that you can focus on. So before you even begin manifesting, you need to get yourself into that expanded frame of mind and that expanded feeling in you. And then you can then focus on the things you want in life. But you need to focus on not just getting those things, but actually asking the universe to provide you with guidance. Because if you're looking for something like a bigger house, a newer car, a better job, these things don't often just drop into our laps. A bigger house just doesn't drop into your lap, does it? It's something that actually comes along after you've taken place in a number of steps. So the universe tends to provide to us not in a very direct way. The universe might provide a better job by first introducing you to a different person. And you need to be open to know that opportunities will come in a slightly opaque way. But you need to be open to that, because it won't just drop into your lap. In the same way, I hear stories where somebody says, oh, I was asking for the world for more money, and the next day a $6 check, six-figure check dropped through the post, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. Nobody sends you a six-figure check out of the blue. You have to do something, even if it's just filling in a lottery ticket. You have to do something for that check to arrive. I just don't get it. So these things don't happen by dropping out of the sky. They happen because you change your frequency and new things start to happen to you as a result of emitting a completely different vibration. That vibration draws to you people, circumstances and opportunities which will be stepping stones towards the greater things that you really have set your heart on. So let's now just briefly recap what we're talking about here. Before I do recap, I want to cover something actually which is quite important, which is the law of reciprocity. The law of reciprocity says what you give out to the universe comes right back to you. Now, I used to call this the law of tenfold return. If you give out good, you'll get 10 times good back, but if you give off bad, you'll get 10 times bad back. That's the law of reciprocity. The universe will always deliver back to you in accordance with your underlying resonant wavelength. Negative wavelengths will deliver negative results. You can't manifest your desires in life when your underlying feelings are inconsistent with those underlying thoughts. So, practice being the observer from today. Practice watching yourself doing the things that you do. Practice positive thoughts and feelings. Practice compassion, gratitude and love. And always move towards expansion. And only ever ask the universe to provide anything to you when you're in a state of expansion. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, I'd like you to click the like button down there and maybe subscribe so you'll get later videos from me. I suggest now what you do is, having watched it once, you go back to the beginning, because there's a lot of information in here and you need to go back and make some notes and look at those exercises, because those exercises will be what makes the difference. Just understanding this won't make any difference. You need to actually do something, and that means you need to practice the various exercises that will help you change your vibrational frequency that you're giving out to the world. Once you begin to change that, you will see it starts to deliver something different to you. I wish you the very best of luck and the best of success in the future.